For a long time, even the Jedi believed that it was nothing but a legend, but the Wellspring of Life is real. This is where the Force itself takes shape. This transmission is going to look into everything you ever wanted to know about the Wellspring of Life. This Force planet is the origin of life itself in the galaxy, as it is the birthplace of midi-chlorians. Midi-chlorians aren't just a way for the Jedi to measure an individual's Force potential. They are the spark for all life and a connection between the living and cosmic Force. The Wellspring is surrounded by a bright nebula. It's not charted on any star maps. The surface is full of bizarre geological features. Glowing geysers emit light that shoot into the atmosphere. Deserts with rocky terrain that appear barren abruptly give way to vast floating jungles packed with life. The Wellspring and the mysterious beings that inhabit it are first introduced toward the end of the Clone Wars. We learn that Qui-Gon Jinn, the Jedi who was most closely listening to the living Force at this time period, was the first in modern times to rediscover that this was actually a real place rather than a myth. Unfortunately, he was killed before he could actually go personally. Qui-Gon was also the first Jedi in a long time to learn how to retain his consciousness in the Force after death. He's able to speak to Yoda about the Wellspring. He urges him to go, saying the Force itself will be the only guide that Yoda needs. Upon arrival, Yoda encounters 5 mysterious beings, all incredibly powerful in the Force. These are known as the Force Priestesses. These beings are great representations of one of my favorite quotes by Yoda: "Luminous beings are we, not this crude matter." In this case, it appears to be literal. Each of the priestesses wear matching flowing robes and intricate white masks. The masks are the only way to tell them apart, as they all have the same ethereal voice. Each mask represents an emotion: serenity, joy, anger, confusion, and sadness. Like the other Force beings we've encountered over the course of the larger Star Wars story, these 5 are not simple mortal biological creatures. The robes and masks give mortal beings something to focus on. One even reveals to Yoda that there is only light beyond the clothing, and the entity vanishes as soon as the mask is lifted. They are something much bigger. They're facets of the Force itself. They represent how the living Force, the here and now, and the cosmic Force, the eternal flow of energy, work together to create life. These beings help a master, even as wise and well-studied as Yoda, get to a larger, deeper understanding of the Force. They also set him on his path of being able to retain his own identity after his mortal death. Dave Filoni, who was supervising director of the Clone Wars at the time, confirms that the 5 priestesses are actually one ancient being that has separated over time. The priestesses are able to feel how strong Yoda is in the Force, but are not sure he's worthy of receiving what they have to offer. If you're getting value or entertainment out of any of my transmissions, it would mean a lot if you would join the Remnant and subscribe. He undergoes a series of trials that test the Jedi Master in ways that he's never been tested. These tests are difficult, but they're about seeing if Yoda is in balance rather than how powerful he is. The first test is to abandon fear. He literally faces down the dark version of himself. This shows that the dark side is an ever-present corruption waiting to creep in. The goal is to not let it win. It's a battle with no end. The second task is in resisting temptation. Yoda faces 2 realities that both feel very real and try to pull him in. The first is dystopian. The Jedi Temple is in ruins and all of his colleagues are dead. Sidious has taken control of the galaxy. The second is utopian. The Clone Wars never happened, and all of the friends and colleagues that Yoda has lost along the way are back. Resisting despair and false hopes show that Yoda is able to see the truth and face harsh realities. These trials are just the start. The real message comes after. It's brief, but very important. Yoda is faced with the priestess Serenity, and it is not an arbitrary choice at which one Yoda talks to last. She tells him in order to hold on to his identity after death, he must truly know himself and let go of it. To make it a little bit more plain, she tells him that only by letting go of ego can a Jedi remain intact beyond death. This is also why a Sith can't become a Force ghost. I think we should boil this down one step further by stepping back into our own world. The concept of serenity, see, I told you it wasn't an accident that she was the one to deliver this message. Like much of the foundational Jedi and Force systems, we can look to our own Eastern religions: Buddhism, Hinduism, and Taoism, maybe even some Stoicism. These ancient philosophies have a different way of framing it, but all talk about recognizing the patterns of the ego, practicing mindfulness to stay present, and using empathy and compassion to shift one's focus from the self to others. Buddhism says attachment to one's ego is the primary cause of human suffering. The path to enlightenment, or nirvana, is in letting go of attachments through mindfulness, meditation, and understanding the impermanence of things. The goal is not to destroy your individual identity, but to destroy the ego. Identity can be a flexible, dynamic structure, not something rigid. Eliminating the ego allows your consciousness to merge with the universe and is even called deathlessness. This explains Obi-Wan Kenobi telling Darth Vader that if he's struck down, he will become more powerful than Vader could possibly imagine. He has to destroy his ego, and when his organic body is destroyed, his consciousness will merge with the Force, achieving serenity and deathlessness. Hinduism describes ego as a temporary construct fueled by ignorance. Their goal is to dissolve the self-centered ego and realize the universal highest form is to be one with the supreme reality. To translate this back into Star Wars terms, being one with the cosmic force. Meditation and yoga are ways to purify the mind and body to quiet the ego and let the real self emerge. Much like a Jedi's constant struggles to keep the darkness at bay, they say quiet the ego, not destroy it. An important distinction, as this is a pursuit with no end. Taoism emphasizes we live in harmony with the natural flow of the universe, the ego being an obstacle along that journey. I don't even need to translate that back into Star Wars, it's right there for us. Their thoughts on quieting the ego are in letting go of control, validation, and status. In putting the ego aside and allowing the will of the universe to take over, one discovers their true purpose and their place in the natural order, not a mission of self-importance. Stoicism is a little bit different, and though we trace it back to ancient Greece and then Rome, it's the more modern philosophy at play. They urge you to focus internally. Contentment doesn't come from external achievements or possessions. These things feed the ego. You must be aware of what you can and cannot control. Focusing on internal thoughts and actions, things that you can control, you reduce selfishness. Focusing on wisdom, courage, and justice, along with understanding how small an individual is in the universe, keeps the ego at bay. These philosophies obviously go much deeper, but I've boiled down my understanding of what's relevant to Yoda's journey with the Force Priestesses, namely the one representing serenity. Yes, the Force in this fun space fantasy franchise really is this deep. Yoda's given one more task beyond the control of the priestesses. He journeys to another very real physical place, but one steeped in the dark side of the Force, Moraband, also called Korriban. This desolate planet was the home of the Sith and the site of their rebirth with the Rule of Two. Yoda faces echoes of ancient evils and is able to accomplish the silencing of the ego and resisting the dark side we just talked about. Of course, these pursuits are internal and ongoing in philosophy, but given great visualizations in Yoda's quest. Passing this trial, Yoda earns a level of enlightenment. He obtains the knowledge he's after and is tasked with passing it on to future generations of Jedi. After these crucial episodes aired, Jedi News did a question and answer with Dave Filoni. Filoni reveals that Yoda in particular is a character that George Lucas was very protective of. This story was special since it not only explains the Force deeper to the audience, but shows that Yoda achieved his new level of nirvana. It's a big step on the path between the more serious Yoda of the Clone Wars and the kind of goofy Jedi Master we all fell in love with in The Empire Strikes Back. It's also important to point out that all of this, the inclusion of the philosophies, the offshoot story taking Yoda away from the war, and Yoda achieving the serenity, came from the brilliant mind of George Lucas directly. In answering these questions, Filoni offers up an amazing quote that also circles back to Obi-Wan's sacrifice on the Death Star. Certain things in life you cannot defeat through conflict. You can only defeat them through being selfless and giving yourself for others. Inspiration, enlightenment, teaching. He also mentions that all of these ideas are covered in The Empire Strikes Back. I urge anyone watching this video to go back to The Empire Strikes Back and really dial into all of Yoda's dialogue in a way that you haven't since you first saw the movie. The Force Priestesses are the embodiment of a connection between the living Force and the larger, timeless cosmic Force. Filoni has often credited Lucas for being the one to make sure discussions about the nature of the Force beyond the Jedi and Sith dichotomy found its way into the stories. After Lucas sold his company, Filoni stayed on and kept carrying that torch that Lucas had lit. In Star Wars Rebels, we meet the Bendu, who is the one in the middle. This is an extension of the Mortis God Force Priestess conversation. This doesn't mean he uses both light and dark side. It means that when you set the good versus evil paradigm aside, the Force itself is life itself. If you remove the Jedi and Sith moral constructs from the equation, the Force exists in everything. It's a living cycle that naturally corrects imbalances to remain in balance. The Mortis gods embody light, dark, and balance. They are a test for Anakin, as he is the chosen one. These high-concept interpretations also bring in the very interesting Guardians of the Whills. This is a religious order that reveres the Force's mysteries. The name Whills can be traced to some of the earliest concepts of what eventually became Star Wars. The Force Priestesses and the Wellspring of Life are key elements in Star Wars lore. They blend the ideas of the Jedi with real-world philosophical concepts that influenced Lucas's ideas about the Force itself. To show how important this arc is, it was actually the original ending to the entire Clone Wars series. That may not have been the intention when the series was originally canceled, but even to end a season of a more action-oriented show aimed at a younger audience with such a philosophical story arc was a bold move. I have videos about the Mortis gods and the Bendu already. Be on the lookout for a fast-approaching video all about the Whills.